Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. And Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna. So what I'd like to present tonight is a little summary of this wonderful pastime of Gopastami and what it's all about, and how it fits into the larger schema of Krishna's his plan, his efforts to attract us back to Godhead, to take up Krishna consciousness. It all starts with Krishna, after all. Everything does. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattak sarvam pravartate. And one of Krishna's statements that he makes at the end of the chapters about the rasa dance is significant in this regard. He says, Anugrahaya bhaktanam manusam dehamashrataha bhajate tadashi krida yashrutva tat paro bhavet. There's got to be a way to turn that off. I'll wait. Hare Krishna. Yeah, you may have to go out and hit the off button somehow. Hare Krishna. Okay. So what this verse means is, never know what sound vibration you'll encounter. What he says there is, Anugrahaya bhaktana manasam deham astrataha. Actually, Shukadeva is speaking to Purikat, and he says, out of his mercy for his devotees, Krishna appears periodically on the earth in his original human-like form, and enacts such pastimes which, when his devotees hear them, they become more attracted to serve him. In other words, Krishna is coming to this world. First, let me offer my basic. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, we start with the premise that Krishna wants us to come back to him in the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada was very clear about the explanation of who we are, how we got here, and how we can go back. His famous phrase, back home, back to Godhead, he practically started a whole movement on that basis, with that idea. So what does that mean? It means, if you just take that one little statement, back home, back to Godhead, it means that we are in exile here. We're all aliens. We don't belong here. We're thinking we may have a home, this and that, but it's all very temporal, very temporary, isn't it? It's obvious if you think about it. And so the basic teaching of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and all the Shastras that Srila Prabhupada chose to give us, the essential Bhakti Shastras, is that you are in a very rare and wonderful situation, and that is you're occupying a human body. Meaning you, the soul, have graduated or developed now to this stage where you can have a human body. Don't waste it. In this human body alone do we have the facility to understand who we are, why we're suffering, how we can reestablish our relationship with God, and go home back to Godhead forever. Now, what's the advantage of that? Well, just on the material level, say, no more birth, no more death, no more old age, no more disease. Isn't that an inducement enough to try to investigate? What is all this about? So the first and inevitable piece of information that we need to know is the very simple idea that we're all spiritual beings. We're not these bodies. These bodies are very temporary, and they're, as I said, a great chance because we're in the human form. But time is going by, and we shouldn't waste it. And so what should we pursue? There's this verse, you probably heard me chant it before because it's one of the most my favorite verses. Labdvasu durlamanidam bahusambhavante manushyam artadam nityam apiha dira turnam yateta napashed napated anumrityavat nikshe saya vishayakalu sarvatakshat. So this is a very important verse, spoken, I think, by Krishna in the 11th canto, from the 11th canto. And he says, Labdvasu durlama vidambo sambhavante manushim. The word manushim is almost like human being, a man. You've attained the human form. After many, many births in lower forms, there's this process that has been set up by Krishna through the material nature, that every living entity goes through different stages. Like these plants out here. They're as much spirit souls as we are. But their consciousness is much, much more rudimentary. You see. They don't have a chance, although these are fortunate plants. I mean, they hear kirtan, and that's important. They may jump a few stages and join the ashram in the next life, who knows. But the point is they can't go, hear properly. So we've been through so many stages, bahu sambhavante, many, many births. And now, manushim. And here's the key phrase, artadam. And you can add the sva in front of it, sva artadam. The concept in the Sanskrit language in our books, sva arta, means the value or the goal of the soul, the actual mission of human life is what is bestowed when you're in human form and you were able to get association of devotees and hear the knowledge. So he says, artadam anityam, but like all forms, they're temporary. So time is going by, as you may have noticed. You can't get a second back for $1 million. So, artadam and nityam apiya dhira. They're temporary, and so one has to be dhira, a very important word. This word appears right at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. Remember that famous verse? And anyone who's lived in an ashram, probably this is one of the first verses you memorize. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tata dehantara prapti dhiras tatta namuyati. Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that every conditioned soul, every embodied soul, is changing his body. And I mean, it's not a mystery. All of us were once 10 years old. Can anyone argue with that? If you weren't once 10 years old, then you couldn't have been this age. So you're 10, 12, 14, up, whatever you happen to be. And if you think back, you were in a different body at that time. And a different mind, isn't it? But you're the same person. So what's the same about you? The soul, the Atma, irreducible spirit soul. This is Dehino asmin yatade komadam yovananda. The Dehina is the soul who dwells within the body. you see? And changing bodies from childhood to adolescence, on and on and on. And each of us is at a certain age right now and a certain state of the body. And it's going to keep changing. And eventually the body, like all machines, will somehow or other become dysfunctional. And you go through another body. You don't die. There's no death. Jayate mriyate va kadachan. It appears a little later in the second chapter. For the soul, there is never birth or death at any time. This is the first meaning of the first line. And it's not that a whole bunch of souls are now coming into being and a whole bunch of souls are now going out of being. No. We're as eternal as Krishna is. The third line could be applied to Krishna as well as us, anyone. Ajo, Nitya, Shashvato, Purana. Unborn, eternal, ever-existing, primeval. So that's our real state. Now doesn't that, if you think about it, that changes everything. It should change all our calculations about what's important in life and what's important to strive for. Because every one of us has to strive for something, if nothing else, just to survive. The hard struggle for existence, Prabhupada called it. But for those of us who have a little more facility, we choose what path we want to take. What should I try to accomplish in this life? Well, if it's just in this life, it's a failure. Because you have many, many more lives in the future. But it should be planning for your next life. And we should try to make this our last embodied life. Material embodied. And that's possible with the process of Bhakti Yoga as given by Lord Chaitanya, which is possible, practical for us to do. Chanting Hare Krishna and getting the spiritual strength to follow the principles of Bhakti as laid down by Srila Prabhupada, which are coming down from time immemorial. So, now where does the Gopastami fit into all this? Well, as I began, Krishna wants to attract us back. He wants to lure us back into the spiritual world. He wants to attract our attention. The attention is all important. When Prabhupada came to the West, and he came to New York, his whole idea, well, how can I capture the attention of at least some souls here in America, so that they'll hear, and I can inject the real, I can impart the science of bhakti to them. Even just a few souls, it can then snowball, which is what it did. He worked for a year. He really didn't attract so many people, and it was difficult. He would go back to the port and see when is the Jaladuta leaving back, or when is it, you know. And then he would give him the, and then finally they said, he kept coming back. You keep asking, but you're not booking a place on the boat. What's going on? Said, yes, I can't go. You know, he really didn't want to throw in the towel, you know. But it was difficult that whole year, you know. Then he started to really attract some interested people who would hear him and take up the practice. So we can be that fortunate. And now this book here. This is a Krishna book. Most of you are very familiar with this book. Prabhupada undertook to write this book in probably '69. And by that time he was using dictaphone, and he was, right. So this Krishna book, as you're probably aware, if you know the books at all, this is what Prabhupada called a summary study of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now the 10th canto deals especially with Krishna's Leela on this earth. And Pariksit was, he asked him, and when Shukadev finally finished the 9th canto, he was very eager to hear the 10th canto. And he expressed himself at the beginning of that 10th canto. Nivrittatasha Rupagiyamana. Who could give up listening to these nectar-like descriptions of Krishna's pastimes, except someone who is committing spiritual suicide or is a gross meat-eater, which really ruins your consciousness. That's why vegetarianism is very important, but even more important is prasadamarianism, and you know what that means. Vegetarian food cooked with love and devotion and offered to Krishna and then partaken in that spirit. Makes eating a spiritual act. So now, Prabhupada suspended his writing of the Srimad Bhagavatam itself, meaning the formal giving of the Sanskrit and then the synonyms and the verse so that we could chant it, and then translation purport like that. Because he had all these followers, he started to come, but they didn't really know that much about Krishna. They're chanting Hare Krishna blissfully on the street, because that's where it is. But he wanted to give them more details about Krishna's pastimes. So he did that in this Krishna book. And Prabhupada would read his own Krishna book. And the story I know with Shrutakirti, I think it was, in his book about his memoirs with Prabhupada, that Prabhupada was reading and he said, "This is such a wonderful book. You can read just one chapter and you can go back to Gaiden." Why one chapter? Just one page you can read, and because it's so pure, so powerful. Why one page? Just one line. Why just one word? You know, he came down to that. Because Prabhupada put his heart and soul in it, and it's wholly and solely about Krishna's all attractive pastimes. So I'm going to go to the chapter that deals with this Gopastami. This is one of my favorite chapters in the book. It's called chapter 15, the killing of Dhenukasura. Now that's part of what's described here, but this is, you have to remember, which I had forgotten, that Krishna is only 6 years old here, right? He just turned 6, and now he can graduate from a calf herd to a cow herd, right? He has more responsibility. So, and that's described. In this way, Sri Krishna, along with his elder brother Balaram, passed the childhood age known as Kaumara, that's from 1 to 5, and stepped into the age of Poganda from 6 to 10. At that time, all the cowherd men conferred and agreed to give those boys who had entered Poganda age the charge of the cows in the pasturing ground. Given charge of the cows, Krishna and Balaram traversed Vrindavan, purifying the land with their lotus footprints. So they've graduated, And now the chapter is so wonderful because in this chapter you have all of the different rasas expressed. And I'll explain that. The first one is servanthood, isn't it? Those who know, there's being a servant of God, which is glorious. But then there's also being a friend of God. You read the Krishna book, and Krishna has his friends, they play in the forest, and that's very nicely described here. And then you have parental ras. Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and all the elders, the elder gopis and the elder men, they have this paternal or maternal, parental relation with Krishna. And we're celebrating this whole month with Damodar Ashtaka, isn't it? Remembering that pastime where Krishna was so naughty and Mother Yashoda ran after him. So that's very sweet. And then you have the conjugal ras, isn't it? Krishna and the gopis, and especially Srimati Radharani. So where does the servanthood come in here? Interestingly enough, when I first read this, I said, "Oh, this is an interesting chapter," because this chapter features Balaram. Balaram is the one who finally kills Dhenukasura. And Krishna, when they go into the forest, is very beautiful, and he starts glorifying the trees, how they're bowing down with their fruits and flowers to offer Balaram obeisances. And that the bees are singing and they're humming stotras that glorify Balaram. So Krishna is taking the role of a glorifier, rather than being glorified. So he's in the role of a servant. And Balaram, it says, sometimes in playing he would pretend at being exhausted, and then he would lie down, take a little nap, and then Krishna would come and massage his feet. Kind of massage. Now, how sweet can that be? So that's going on here, and the boys are playing. They're, they're running after the shadows of the birds in the sky, and they're calling, making echoes in the wells, and the frogs they're imitating, and the peacocks, and how they would dance, and Krishna would also imitate, and the boys would laugh. So all of this is, we should remember, these are eternal pastimes. The replicas of what's going on in Goloka Vrindavan was enacted in Bhoma Vrindavan on earth 5,000 years ago. Why? That's the verse I chanted. To attract us back, to give us details of Krishna's all-attractive pastimes, form, name, qualities, pastimes, so that we can become attracted to take up Bhakti Yoga and cultivate, or let's say rediscover, that original loving relationship with Krishna. That's the axiom upon which this movement is based. Is that all of us are naturally lovers of God, but that's become polluted or forgotten, and we become attracted to things in this material world. And we're trying to enact these very rasas, the friendship ras, and the parental ras, and the conjugal ras, everything. But it's very frustrating, because time changes everything. And if you probably notice, if you live in this world, you have a relationship, and something happens and it breaks, And it can be devastating, very devastating, because we're looking for that eternal relationship, and it's just not here on the material plane. So we need to hear from someone who has transcended, who has reawakened, or who is representing that original relationship. And that someone is Srila Prabhupada. This is why he was so adamant and so eager to write his books, getting up in the middle of the night, wherever he was, and dictating, and then, having to deal with managerial problems, the movement, this one fell down, this is what's going on over here, who stole this money? I mean, there's a lot of, it's not easy. Traveling all over the world, but writing, he would always write. So this Krishna book is a great treasure, and this chapter describes that. So at a certain point, Krishna is just cavorting with his friends. Wouldn't that be a great job to have? Where you go to work, and then you play all day, and then you get paid. That's what he's doing. And what does it take to herd the cows? The cows are doing very well. They're just, there's plenty of grass for them to, and the boys are playing their flute, playing games. And then to liven things up, some demon will come, So what happens is that the boys ask Krishna, "Oh, Krishna, there's this wonderful forest nearby called the Talavan. And the tala fruits are ripe in the trees, and some of them have fallen down. Can't you smell the fragrance of these wonderful fruits? To tell you frankly, we're really hankering for these fruits. Balaram, you're the most powerful, But the problem is that there's this demon there, Dhenukasura. Now, it's never called this, but he's the donkey demon. You can remember that. He's a donkey. But he's got puffed up. He's got special powers, And so, and he has a lot of friends and Prabhupada said friends and associates with him also, other donkeys. So, and he's very vicious, with his hind legs he can kick and kill you. So no one's there. He says even the birds have left. Everyone's afraid in that day. So Balaram, you're very powerful. He's already proved that they already killed several demons. And so Balaram said, okay. So he goes to the Talavan forest, and he shakes a tree, and all the fruits come down. And Dhenukasura said, oh, this is a big challenge to me. And he comes running, he's furious. He turns his back on Balaram, which itself is a great offense. We should be careful not to turn our back to the deities. And then he kicks him. And it's described, he's kicked it with a tremendous power and force, but Balaram didn't feel anything. The example usually is given as if an elephant was hit with a flower garland. That's how much it hurt. In other words, not at all. So he's angry, so he's making a big racket, braying, and he comes back again, turns back and kicks again. This time Balaram grabs the hind legs and starts swinging him around. Now Krishna already killed Vasasura that way when he was there was a demon who disguised himself as a calf. And Krishna's a calf word, so that way he got in. Krishna could recognize, you could see. So he got around behind him and grabbed his hind legs and whirled him around and killed him. So this Dhenukasura, he expired in the same way. And there's all these trees, and Balaram threw him into the top of a highest tree, and the tree kept swinging, and it hit other trees, and they came bashing down. It was very dramatic, And then, Prabhupada writes, the friends and associates of Dhenukasura, they came, they were enraged that their leader had been killed. Now this is it happens a lot. It's going to be a little noisy out there. As long as we keep the heat off, I think it'll be okay. So they came and they wanted to avenge their friend. Now remember, Krishna this is the first time out with the cows, So how old is he? 6 years old. Balaram is 6 years plus 1 week. That they're basically the same age. But that doesn't matter. And we learned when Krishna killed Putana, he can be 5 months old and he's still powerful. So they all come running. In other words, they're stupid. Here's the head donkey was killed. He's the most powerful. And they don't think, we better run the other way because we're not. No, they're blinded. And this is right in the Bhagavad Gita. When you become angry, you lose your memory, you lose your intelligence. Isn't it? So that's what happens with these donkeys. They're already not very intelligent. So they run, and they get caught up and get thrown in all of them like that. And then all the trees started swaying and the tons of fruits came down. Now in the Bhagavatam it says that they look like clouds, they're all on the ground because they broke down the trees and all the fruits are there. But there's all this blood from the donkeys. So not many people came. A few Aborigines came and washed it off, but it's kind of contaminated. But anyway, that was that pastime. So they go through like that, and then at the end of the day, they're coming back. And this is where Krishna starts manifesting these other rasas. Now here's the Sakya rasa, of course, is very prominent. His friends, he's cavorting, and they just had this wonderful pastime. And now he comes back, and when he comes into the village, all of the gopis rush out of their houses to see him. You know? And they're looking at him with these loving glances, and he's glancing at them and assuring them and giving back. And they're just taken. Just that one little interaction with him is nourishing for them. You see? So that's the extent of but it's still there. The conjugal rasa is there. Then he goes home, and it's all like, I'm a 6-year-old boy, you know. So, okay, bathe him and feed him. And it says, there's a song by Jiva Goswami. There's a beautiful book. These are all available now, called the Gopal Champu. There's several translations. My old friend Kusha Krata Prabhu gave a very nice translation. And there's songs in there. And in one of these songs, I'm sorry, I forget the Sanskrit, but the refrain goes, Harina Dana Vipa Balina. I forget it goes, but it's very rhythmic. And it says, Balaram and Krishna came in, and Mother in the evening time, and Mother Yashoda was pampering them both and feeding them. So, but what is not explained in the Bhagavatam is that she did a little arati for them. This is traditional, isn't it? It describes she's giving the lamp and everything like that. Then the bathing, you know, and she has all these prasadam for them. And then they very nicely go to sleep. And in the song, it describes that other of his intimate friends were looking in the doorway when this was going on. And so she invited them all in. And she also, you know, bathed them and fed them and put them to sleep. There was a sleepover. You know, so I mean, this is all attractive. Supreme Personality of Godhead. So all of the different rasas are explained, and this is a different mood now, because more exuberant. You know, he's 6 years old and you know, heading towards 7, 8, 9, and 10, and of course in 7, oh boy, and then comes the lifting of Govardhan Hill. He's a little more grown up, a little stronger, right? He can hold up there. So that happens, and actually after this one comes the Kaliya pastime. Now, one thing, if you read the Krishna book, I want to really stress the importance of this book, that what it does is really describe the qualities, the pastimes, and of course the form, everything about Krishna, and helps to attract you to chant the holy name and practice Krishna consciousness, so that you can become more and more attracted to Krishna. That's really the goal of Krishna consciousness, is to attract our mind completely away from Maya and back to Krishna, where it belongs, where it started. How did we get here? We wanted to compete with Krishna. You know, there's a verse Prabhupada would always quote from the Prema Vivartam by Jagadananda Pandit. It says, Krishna Bahamukha Hoya Bhoga Bancha Kare Nikatasta Mayatare Japatiya Dari. That desiring bhoga, in other words, to enjoy separately from Krishna, we turned away from him. We turned our attention away. Bahirmukha literally means turn your face away. Then what are we facing? The whole material energy, where we can try to be enjoyers and masters, you see? And Maya is right there. There's no delay. As soon as you do that, she covers your knowledge, and she drags you down into the material energy. And that's where we've been ever since. Trying to be little Krishnas, which is not our nature. And we're defeated. And sometimes we have to spend so many years, not even out of a human life. It's described in detail in the Bhagavatam. So that big mistake that we made, we have to reverse it. And that's what it means, turn back to Krishna. Our face toward the beautiful Radha Giridhari, and our mind full of thoughts of the name, qualities, forms, pastimes of Krishna, and all of our other facilities, where appropriate, linked up to Krishna in service. That's the definition of bhakti. Sarvopari vinimuktam tatpadatvena nirmalam vishikena vishikesha sevanam bhakta uchate. This is in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Upadis. Upadis are designations. I'm this old, I have this color, I was born in this family, and all of these are upadis, means they're false designations on the soul. None of us are any of those things. That all pertains to the body, but we're not the body. We're not the body. So sarvabhati vinimuktam, free from all those designations, sarvabhati vinimuktam tatparatvena nirmalam, and purified of the illusions of duality, and rishikena rishikesha sevanam, with the senses, serving the master of the senses. This is one of the first things you know, that the concept is that when it says that Krishna is the master of the senses, that means our senses. These are really his senses. And when we use them in his service, just like chanting his name in front of the deity, it just feels right. It just feels like this is the right thing to do. And you look at the deities and they're smiling back, you know, and you can feel that this attraction can be increased more and more. And it can be increased. That's what the whole design of bhakti, as Rupa Goswami gave it following Lord Chaitanya's instructions. How to create an atmosphere in which all the facilities that we have, our knowledge-acquiring senses, beginning with the ear and the eyes and smells, the incense, taste with the prasadam, all of them can be linked up to Krishna. And our active senses, beginning with the voice, can be used in Krishna's service, the most important of the active senses. And all of them, hands, feet, everything. So it's a systematic process, very scientific as Prabhupada would say, and it works every time if we employ it properly. So part of that is learning to read Krishna book amongst your friends and other devotees. I remember that was a central part of our day when I first joined in Brooklyn back in '73. It's been over 50 years. And we had a nice complement of devotees. It was a special temple because it was where all the books were being produced. And we had all these painters. They were actually very advanced, meditating on Krishna's form all day. Jadharani was there, and Pariksit was there, and Muralidhar, all these legendary painters. These paintings are all by them. And then you had various really nice kirtaniyas, Bharadwaj, Vishnu Gada, Jai Sachinandan. And it was just happening every day. It was your duty to go out on Harinam, 3 hours. You can imagine how purified that is. And morning and evening program, the evening program is coming up. Oh, Ki Bajaya Jaya Gora Chandar. There's a song. Some of you know it. And it's a song about Lord Chaitanya on the bank of the Ganges receiving worship as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, describing all of that. And in the evening, the lights are up. You know, in the morning, it's more meditative in Mangalartik. You know, it's very, I mean, it can be very ecstatic, no doubt, but it's not quite as much. But in the evening, you kick out all the stops, you know, everyone's running around, boom, drumming. And so and then afterward, Krishna book with hot milk before you take rest. Dream of Krishna, wake up in the morning, another day of Hare Krishna. So it's actually, that's actually what, Prabhupada wanted us to do. And if you make it a practice of reading Krishna book regularly, especially with your friends, family, you'll find that Krishna is all attractive. And I wanted to just say a few words about this Krishna book, because I know it's an issue. This is the Krishna book printed by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. Some of you may know that there's other Krishna books out there, which are the original Krishna book. But the problem with the original Krishna book is that, anyway, the editors became a little more expert after some years. And I'm not going to give you some examples, but let me give you one example, because this is my favorite chapter, chapter 21. Yeah, who knows what that's about? Venugit, right? Sivaram Swami wrote a whole book on Venugit with all commentaries. It's very important. Venugit is a chapter that features the songs of the gopis. When Krishna's in separation, they're singing that back home. And so let me I'll just read the beginning of this chapter. The gopis attracted by the flute, that's what it's called. So the rainy season is over and autumn has come. And so everything is very lush from all those rains, you know. With the arrival of the beautiful autumn season, the waters in the lakes and rivers became as clear as crystal and filled with fragrant lotus flowers. And breezes blew very pleasantly. At that time, Krishna entered the forest of Vrindavan with the cows and cowherd boys. You won't find that in the old Krishna book. or the Krishna book that's sold as the original. Those two sentences, although Prabhupada spoke them on the tape, they're there, somehow they were lost. And that's the beginning of the chapter, because I worked on the actual Bhagavatam. And there are others. Uddhava goes to Vrindavan in chapter 47. This is one of Prabhupada's favorite chapters to hear, because it's all about mood of separation. And Uddhava takes a message to the gopis from Krishna, a letter he reads to, it's very moving. So at the end of, he stays for a month, I think at least a month, and he sees the wonderful, intense love that the gopis have for Krishna, even in separation, which is the highest form, Vipalamba. And so then he's praising them, and he has all these prayers. I'm not going to read it, I didn't have enough time. But the gist of it is that I pray that I can take birth in Vrindavan as a little bush or shrub, or even just a little outside of Vrindavan, so that somehow as the gopis go from here to there, I'll get some of the dust on me, This is a really nice prayer. This is Uddhava, such an exalted associate of Krishna, praying that, not to take birth as a gopi, but just to be blessed by the lotus foot dust. That prayer was left out. They thought that it was, that the translation that Prabhupada gave of that prayer was left out. So don't be swayed by any propaganda. The BBT Krishna book has all these gems that I excavated in 1994. I spent a couple of months in Sweden working just on the Krishna book and going over the original transcripts and comparing to what we had and saying, wait a minute, there's something amiss here, like that. So this is the result of that, and it's as it is, as Prabhupada presented it. So, and it's a real treasure. Plus you have all these wonderful illustrations, the paintings you can meditate on. Prabhupada, he so much liked these paintings. He saw, when he saw a painting of Krishna killing Dhenukasura, or Balaram killing Dhenukasura, or whatever it was, he was experiencing the very pastime. He said these paintings are like windows to the spiritual world. This is how he saw them. So you can remember that when you see these paintings, how they can evoke remembrance. If you remember the painting, you're remembering the Leela. So they're very important, and we have a selection in here. This is one of my favorites, Krishna dancing on Kaliya. Yeah, famous, he's dancing on Kaliya. There's also one where he's enwrapped in the coils. I don't think that's here. But as you read Krishna book, you see Krishna is like a maestro. He's like a director of a play. And his whole point is to draw out a variety of intense emotions from the Brijbasis. So this Kaliya pastime is in spades. Anyone who knows the pastime, Kaliya had been exiled, and he was taking shelter in the Yamuna River because Garuda couldn't go there. He was cursed. There's a whole pastime there. So Garuda kills snakes. So he wanted, but Kaliya himself was so poisoned. He had 100 hoods, and he was like, poisonous snake. So he poisoned the whole Yamuna lake there, and was so poisonous the birds would fall in. If they flew over, they would expire and fall into the lake, river. So talk about water pollution, So Krishna, he went to the bank of the lake, and his friends took took some water and to drink, and they all died. And he brought them back to life. We could do that. It happened several times. But then he realized, I have to clear out Kaliya. So he dives in, and he's circling Kaliya, and then Kaliya grabs him, and he's got him enwrapped in this one of his coils, and he's got all these hoods. It's like a big python with 100 hoods. Not a python, but a cobra. And then there were all these omens, and all the residents back, they were poisonous snake. Python just crushes you. Yeah, cobra. That's what I said at the end. So anyway, so there's all these omens suddenly, bad omens and everything. And Balaram, he didn't go with Krishna. They think Balaram can protect Krishna. Bala, he's older. He's a week older. So he stayed home. So now they're really panicky. So they all follow his footprints, and they go to the river there, and they see Krishna enwrapped in those coils. And there's this little delicate little body, and this monstrous snake with 100, hoods, and just glaring at him. And so Mother Yashoda fainted right away, and then she woke up and she wanted to go in, and save him, like she could. Balaram was smiling. He knew that there was no danger, and he was preventing everyone from going in. But for hours, they were just lamenting. It was like devastating. And then, you all know this, he breaks out, jumps up on the hoods, and starts dancing. And I once read in one of the Acharya's books that dancing that he did on Kaliya was the source of all the different Sanskrit meters and everything, and chanda, which should be pretty amazing, I specialize in that. So he's dancing on those hoods, and the demigods are playing the drums and showering flowers, and you can imagine the relief, Mother Yashoda's relief. Oh God, and all the Vrijbasis. So he's manipulating, he's just engineering these extremes of emotion, which is what Krishna consciousness is all about. To feel, oh, Krishna's abandoning me. Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Right? Yugayatam name shena lochitani showed. Every moment is a million years, right? How does it go? Every moment drags on like a million years or more. From the rain clouds of my eyes, the tears and torrents pour. This whole creation is nothing but a vast and joyless void. O Govinda, by your absence I am being destroyed. I put it into a little poem. So that's the standard of the highest bhakti, and Krishna would draw that out. Every day he'd be gone to the forest, and then Mother Yashoda and all the gopis are waiting for him. And finally he comes back. Oh, there he is. So this is what you find in the Krishna book, and of course he's there in Vrindavan, and then he goes to Mathura and the killing of Kamsa and all the Dwarka Leela. Everything is explained there. So it's a wonderful gift, and please, if you don't have the Krishna book, take one home today. I'm sure there's plenty in our bookstore and the Go Down bookstore. We could go to the Go Down, where we store things. And that's what these pastimes are all about. This wonderful. Now, Radharani is not older than Krishna, right? She's younger, so she's also like 6 years old. She looks a little older there, but that love was there even from childhood. That intense love, and she wants to be with him, and so she disguises herself as Subal Saka. She resembles him. There's a resemblance. She fools everybody, all the elders. That's the main thing, and she gets out there. So it's like that. There's always some new adventure every day in Krishna Lila, and that's where we belong. So we should aspire to go back, chant regularly, and follow the process as has been given, and at least make some substantial progress toward going home back to Godhead. And it's one of my favorite verses of all time. Neha brikkamanashosti pratyavayo navidyate svopamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. In this endeavor of Krishna consciousness, there's no loss and no diminution. Where do you find that in the material world? Stock market? No. Plenty of loss, plenty of diminution. Even if you win money, you wasted your time so much. It's like anyway. So everything, Mrityu Sarvadascharam, you have to leave everything behind. But in Krishna consciousness, you keep it because it's a spiritual asset which adheres to your soul, and the soul never dies. So make as much progress as possible, and then this life or next life or soon, go back and rejoin Krishna. And I'd be really happy to see who we really are in the spiritual world, because these are just costumes. It'd be very interesting. So I'm going to end with a few poems, unless someone has an objection. These are the origin of this is my old friend Sura. Sura Das was a great hero of the BBT. Some of you may know him as the head of the Temple Bhajan Band, which I had good fortune of being part of the first engagements. And one year, 2004, because we would calendar every year, and I'm very sorry for anyone who's trying to follow the 2023 calendar, and there's some mistakes. And coming up, I think on the 27th, check it, is Gaur Kishore Das Babaji's disappearance date, which is not on the calendar. We made a mistake, so please forgive us. But anyway, in that year, 2004, we said, let's do some desk calendars, because we have these calendars that hang, We should have a calendar that can sit on the desk. So I said, okay, can I write poems for the captions? He said, sure. And so that's where I started writing these poems, and this is a few of them. And the reason I'm getting this out, because I want to see if I can play some.
Battery 90%.
Okay.
Connected to Thomas's icon.
Sorry, can't shut her up. She always says something when we turn it on. Okay. Can you hear that? This is in the line of Narantara Prabhu. So, okay. So, we start out with one of my favorites from chapter 21. Barhapidam natavadabapu karneyo karnikaram Bimran Basa Kakanaka Kapisham Vajayanting Chamalam Randran Veno Hadadasudeya Puriyan Gopa Vrindar Vrindaranyam Sapadadamanam Prabhishan Gita Kirti with lovely peacock plume upon his head and fragrant flower placed upon each ear, he enters Braja's wood with graceful tread, a handsome dancing actor without peer. His golden yellow raiment brightly glows, his splendid garland reaches to his knees, and from his luscious lips the nectar flows, and fills his flute with charming melodies, as Krishna thus begins his blissful day, with cowherd friends who sing his glory sweet. He beautifies Vrindavan's forest way with fine impressions of his lotus feet. So now, then they get free of the village, and they're free, and so Krishna and Balaram start to run along the banks of the Yamuna. You've seen that? All the cows are behind them? This is a wonderful painting. Let's go, said Krishna, don't delay at all. And he and Balaram began to run ahead of all their cowherd friends who called, "Oh Krishna, Rama, let us join the fun." And off they ran to Braja's forest haunts, to play in every bower, grove, and sward. The boys would tease their friend with playful taunts, forgetting his position as the Lord. Shri Krishna is inviting us as well, to join him in his pastimes which enthrall. The wise heed Krishna when they hear him tell, "Let's go, my friends, do not delay at all." And now one more, unless I get it, you won't let me just do one more. And now Krishna's swinging. Have you ever seen the painting where he's swinging in the boughs? That's also there. For Krishna and his multitude of friends, a festival of joy each day would bring. A special thrill in Braja's forest glens was riding with them high upon a swing. O Ujjvala Shri Dama Bhadra Sain, just see Vrindavan's bountiful delights. The peacock's dance, the songbird's sweet refrain, the lakes and hills and other scenic sights. All these make this the best place on the earth for us to play all day and herd the cows. Thus Krishna, in a mood of sportive mirth, enthused his friends while swinging from the boughs. All right, you can miss me. One more. So this is now, we had Balaram's appearance day is always wrapped up with Julan Yatra, right?
We have the cow waiting.
The what?
We have the cow waiting here.
Oh, there's a cow?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's coming.
You just have 2 minutes.
Okay.
2 minutes. Yeah, so then the Julan Yatra, that's the swing festival. Where blooming flowers spread their sweet perfumes, where clear Yamuna flows and songbirds sing, where all the land a lovely light illumes, Shri Radha and Shri Krishna gently swing. This pastime of their love in Braja's bowers forever charms their dearest devotees, whose hearts Shri Krishna's sweetness overpowers, obscuring his prodigious potencies. Whatever in this world we know as love is just a shadow of the love they feel. The wise aspire to learn the secrets of devotion's path and taste that love ideal. One more. Distract him so he won't. Okay. This is the last one, I promise. So Krishna's sitting on a rock, a comfortable seat in Vrindavan, and there's a little dove on his hand, and there's a swan and a cow and a deer. The sweetness of Shri Krishna's form beguiles. Still sweeter is his face like autumn moon, but sweeter than the sweetest is his smile, whose luscious beauty makes the gopis swoon. Govinda's beauty captivates the doves, the swans, the deer, the cows, and every tree. Indeed, in Braja, every creature loves Sri Krishna and is drowned in ecstasy. That all attractive land is paradise, our home where we may dwell eternally. Most welcome there are those who pay the price to learn to love Sri Krishna perfectly. And so that really has to be the end because my voice has expired. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. So I'm